Get rid of those flowers.
Esther looked up from her desk to find Kang Minho standing in his office doorway, his jaw tight and his eyes fixed on the crystal vase of white roses that had arrived 20 minutes ago. Her boss, her untouchable, brilliant, devastatingly controlled boss, who never commented on personal matters, who'd spent 3 years maintaining perfect professional distance. Until now. "I'm sorry," she asked, though she'd heard him perfectly. "The flowers, Miss Okonkwo, get rid of them now." The entire 47th floor had gone silent. Assistants frozen mid-keystroke. Junior executives suddenly fascinated by their monitors. Even Mr. Park from accounting had stopped his perpetual grumbling about expense reports. Everyone was watching. Esther felt heat crawl up her neck, but she kept her voice steady. "They're just flowers, Mr. Kang. They're a distraction." He moved toward her desk with that predatory grace that made shareholders nervous and competitors sweat. "And we have work to do, my office, now." He didn't wait for her response, just turned and walked back through the frosted glass doors, expecting her to follow. She always did. But something about the set of his shoulders, the tension in his movements, the way he'd looked at those roses like they were a personal insult, something was different today. Esther grabbed her tablet and stood, acutely aware of every eye tracking her across the executive floor. She could practically hear the speculation brewing. In 3 years, Kang Minho had never shown interest in anyone's personal life. He barely acknowledged his employees had lives outside these walls. So why did he care about white roses? And why did her heart hammer against her ribs as she approached his office? Minho was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows when she entered, Seoul's skyline sprawling 47 stories below. His hands were clasped behind his back, the stance he adopted when he was calculating, thinking, holding something back. "Close the door," he said without turning around. Esther obeyed, her heels clicking softly against the polished marble floor. "The Singapore contracts need." "Who sent them?" She blinked. "Excuse me." "The roses." He turned slowly and the look in his dark eyes made her breath catch. "Who sent them?" This was insane. 3 years of perfect professionalism, of carefully maintained boundaries, of pretending she didn't notice how other women looked at him, or how her own traitorous heart jumped every time he said her name. And now he was interrogating her about flowers. "That's personal, Mr. Kang. You receive them during work hours, on company property. That makes it my concern. With respect, sir, my personal life has never interfered with my work." David Okafor. The name hit like a slap. Esther's eyes widened. "How did you?" "I know everything that happens in this building." Minho crossed the space between them in 3 long strides, stopping close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his eyes, the muscle ticking in his jaw. "David Okafor, British-Nigerian businessman pursuing a contract with our Busan subsidiary. Met you at a networking event 2 weeks ago. You had coffee with him once. Are you having me followed?" "I'm protecting my assets." "I'm not an asset. You're my most valuable one." The words came out rough, raw. "And he's using you to get access to Hanseong. The moment he secures that contract, his interest will evaporate." Esther's hands clenched around her tablet. "You don't know that." "I know men like him." He leaned in and she caught the scent of his cologne, expensive, subtle, achingly familiar. "I know what they want and how they operate, and I know you deserve better than to be someone's strategic chess piece." "Then what am I to you?" The question escaped before she could stop it. 3 years of frustration and confusion and unspoken longing packed into 6 words. "Because from where I'm standing, I'm exactly that. Your perfect assistant, your chess piece. The one who makes your life easier and asks for nothing in return." Something cracked in his expression, something dangerous and hungry that made her pulse spike. "You think you're nothing to me." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You think I don't notice when you walk into a room, when you bite your lip while you're concentrating, when you reorganize your pens by color even though you swear you don't. Sir. 3 years, Esther. He said her name like a confession, like something he'd been holding back too long. 3 years I've watched you, worked beside you, invented reasons to keep you late just so I could have a few more hours. 3 years of telling myself I was being professional when really I was being a coward. Her heart stopped. What are you saying? I'm saying those flowers made me want to destroy something. I'm saying the thought of you having dinner with David Akafer makes me feel violent. I'm saying I've broken every rule I set for myself just by letting you close enough to matter. Esther couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This had to be some stress-induced hallucination because Kang Minho didn't do feelings. He didn't do vulnerability. He certainly didn't look at his employees like he was drowning, and they were air. You were wearing a blue dress, he continued, his voice rough. The day you interviewed, navy blue with small white buttons. You sat across from the hearing panel and demolished every objection they raised, and I thought, I'm going to hire her, and I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. Why would you regret it? Because I knew. His hand came up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered against her cheek. From the first moment I saw you, I knew you were going to be the one thing I couldn't control, the one variable I couldn't account for, the one weakness I couldn't eliminate. I'm not a weakness. You're the only thing I think about when I'm supposed to be thinking about quarterly earnings. You're the reason I can't sleep. The reason I've turned down every marriage proposal my mother has thrown at me. The reason He stopped, jaw clenching. Tell me to stop. Tell me those flowers mean something. Tell me you want simple and uncomplicated with David Akafer and I'll walk away. She should protect herself, choose the easier path, the one that didn't risk everything. But easy had never been her style. What if I don't want simple? Esther whispered. What if I've spent 3 years waiting for you to see me as more than your assistant? What if those flowers meant nothing because the only man I've wanted is the one I thought I couldn't have? His eyes darkened. You can have me, you already have me. You've had me since that first interview. Then why are we still talking? Minho closed the distance between them, his hands cupping her face, and kissed her like a man who'd been starving for 3 years and finally had permission to feed. The kiss was everything Esther had imagined in her most desperate moments and nothing like she'd expected. Gentle and demanding at once, controlled and desperate, like he was trying to pour 3 years of longing into one perfect moment. She gripped his shoulders, feeling solid muscle beneath the expensive suit, and kissed him back with everything she'd been holding back. Every late night, every stolen glance, every moment she convinced herself she was being foolish for wanting something impossible. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Minho rested his forehead against hers. This changes everything, he murmured. I know. The board will object. Your career could be affected. I know. We should be smart about this, careful. Absolutely, she kissed him again, starting tomorrow. He laughed, an actual laugh, something she'd heard maybe 5 times in 3 years, and it transformed his face, made him look younger, lighter, happy. Starting tomorrow, he agreed. Then his office door burst open. They sprang apart like guilty teenagers as Director Choi stumbled in, his face flushed and his eyes wide with panic. Mr. Kang, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. He stopped, his gaze bouncing between them, taking in their proximity, their flushed faces. The way Minho's hand was still tangled in Esther's hair. Director Choi. Minho's voice was ice cold, back to full CEO mode in a heartbeat. This had better be important. It's, Choi cleared his throat awkwardly. David Akafer is downstairs in the lobby. He's demanding to see Miss Okonkwo and refusing to leave until he speaks with her. Esther's stomach dropped. What? He says she's not answering his calls, that he needs to discuss something urgent about their dinner plans tonight. There are no dinner plans, Esther said firmly. But her cheeks burned with embarrassment. She'd never actually responded to David's invitation. The flowers had arrived while she was in a meeting, and then Minho had. Well, everything had happened very fast. Minho's expression was carved from granite. Tell security to escort Mr. Okafor from the building. He's threatening to make a scene, sir. Something about how Hanseong's business practices regarding the Busan contract. He's implying irregularities. Is he now? Minho's voice could have frozen fire. He turned to Esther, his eyes searching her face. Did you tell him anything about the Busan negotiations? Of course not, she said, stung. I would never. I know, I'm sorry. He touched her hand briefly, a gesture so tender it made her ache. But this is exactly what I was afraid of. He's using you to get leverage. Then let me handle it, Esther said. Let me go down there and make it clear that there's nothing between us, that whatever he thinks he's going to accomplish. No. Minho. I said no. He looked at Director Choi. Tell security to give him 2 minutes. I'm coming down myself. Sir, with respect, that might not be wise. If he's trying to create a scandal. Let him try. Minho straightened his tie, his expression dangerous. Miss Okonkwo and I will handle this together, as we handle everything. The implication was clear, public, deliberate. Director Choi's eyes widened. Sir, are you saying? Exactly what you think I'm saying. Now move. Choi practically ran from the office. Esther grabbed Minho's arm. You don't have to do this. We could keep this quiet at least until. Until when? He turned to face her fully. Until the rumors start anyway. Until people assume the worst because we're hiding. I told you, Esther. I'm done being careful. Done pretending. If we're doing this, we're doing it honestly. The board can deal with it. I built this company. I've tripled its value in 3 years. If they want to object to my personal life, they're welcome to try. His hands found her face again, gentle despite the steel in his voice. But I won't hide you. I won't make you a secret. You deserve better than that. I don't care about that. I care about you, about your reputation. My reputation is built on results, not appearances. And the best result I ever achieved was convincing you to work for me. He kissed her forehead. Let me do this. Let me show you that I meant what I said. Esther's throat tightened. You're insane. Probably. Is that a problem? Not even a little bit. They rode the elevator down in tense silence. Minho's hand clasped around hers like a lifeline. When the doors opened onto the marble lobby, Esther saw David immediately, standing near the reception desk, his expression thunderous, his expensive suit rumpled like he'd been packing. He looked up as they approached, and his eyes narrowed when he saw their joined hands. Esther, he said, his voice tight. Finally, I've been trying to reach you all afternoon. I've been busy, she said, moving instinctively closer to Minho. I can see that. David's gaze flickered to Minho with barely concealed hostility. Mr. Kang, I didn't realize you made a habit of personally escorting your employees. Miss Okonkwo isn't just my employee, Minho said, his voice perfectly neutral but his grip on Esther's hand tightening protectively. She's my partner, in every sense that matters. The lobby had gone completely silent, security guards frozen at their posts, receptionists staring openly, a few late-working employees gaping from the elevator banks. David's face flushed red. Your partner? How convenient. Tell me, Esther, did this partnership start before or after I expressed interest? Because from where I'm standing, it looks an awful lot like a strategic maneuver to shut down my business prospects. Your business prospects shut themselves down, Minho said coldly. The financial irregularities your previous companies tried to bury, the lawsuits that were settled quietly. Did you really think I wouldn't do due diligence before awarding a multi-million-won contract? You had no issues with my bid until I started seeing Esther. We had coffee once, Esther interjected. One coffee. I never agreed to dinner. I never led you on. And whatever you think was happening between us, it was in your imagination. Was it? David's laugh was sharp, ugly. Or did you just find a better meal ticket? The CEO instead of the contractor. Smart move, I'll give you that. Minho moved before Esther could stop him. One moment he was beside her. The next he was in David's space, his expression absolutely lethal. You're going to apologize, he said quietly, each word precisely enunciated. Right now, to Esther, or I'm going to make it my personal mission to ensure that every business opportunity you pursue in Seoul, in all of South Korea, ends badly for you. You can't. I can, and I will, happily. Minho leaned in closer. Esther is brilliant, accomplished, and completely capable of making her own choices. The fact that she chose me has nothing to do with my position and everything to do with the fact that I actually see her as a person instead of a networking opportunity. David's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Esther thought he might actually swing, but instead he just shook his head in disgust. You'll regret this, he said, looking at Esther. Both of you, when the scandal breaks, when the board starts asking questions, when everyone in this building assumes you slept your way to whatever promotion he's about to give you, you'll remember this moment. The words landed like poison darts, finding every fear Esther had buried. Mr. Okafor, Minho said, his voice dropping to Arctic temperatures. You have 10 seconds to leave this building before I have you removed, and if I ever hear that you've contacted Miss Okonkwo again, for any reason, I will personally ensure that the financial irregularities you've been hiding become very, very public. Am I clear? David glared at them both, then turned on his heel and stormed toward the exit. Silence fell over the lobby like a heavy blanket. Esther became acutely aware of the dozens of eyes watching them, of the phones that had definitely captured that entire confrontation, of the gossip that would spread through Hanseong Tower like wildfire. Well, she said quietly, that could have gone better. Minho turned to her, and despite everything, he was smiling. Could it? Because from where I'm standing, it went perfectly. Perfectly? We just created the scandal of the year. No, we just stopped hiding. He raised their joined hands, making the gesture visible to everyone watching. And now everyone knows that you're mine, that I'm yours, that this isn't a secret or a mistake or something to be ashamed of. Minho. I love you, he said, loud enough for the entire lobby to hear. I've loved you for 3 years and I'm done pretending otherwise. Let them talk. Let them gossip. Let the board have their meeting and the media have their field day. None of it changes the truth. Esther's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. You're completely insane. Is that a problem? Not even a little bit. She kissed him there in the lobby of Hanseong Tower, in front of security guards and receptionists and random employees who definitely had their phones out. She kissed him like her life depended on it, like he was the only solid thing in a world that had just tilted sideways. When they finally broke apart, the lobby erupted in scattered applause, mostly from the younger employees, the ones who apparently thought public declarations of love were romantic instead of catastrophic. Come on, Minho said, threading his fingers through hers. Let's get out of here before someone starts writing fan fiction about us. Too late, one of the security guards muttered, and several people laughed. They made it to the parking garage before Esther's phone started buzzing. Multiple notifications, social media tags. Someone had already posted a video. It's starting, she said quietly. I know. Minho opened the passenger door of his Mercedes for her. Regrets. She thought about it, really thought about it. About the career she'd built, the reputation she'd carefully cultivated, the professional distance she'd maintained. And then she thought about the way Minho looked at her like she was the only person in the world who mattered. The way he'd stood in that lobby and claimed her publicly, consequences be damned. The way he'd said, "I love you," like it was the only truth that mattered. "Not even one," she said. "Good," he kissed her again, softer this time, "because we're just getting started." 3 years earlier, Esther had been terrified. She'd sat across from the Halcyon Group hearing panel in her navy blue dress with the small white buttons. Her resume spread before them and tried not to let her desperation show. She needed this job, needed it with an urgency that made her hands shake beneath the conference table. She'd been in Seoul for 2 years, working for a smaller company that had just gone bankrupt. Her visa was temporary. Her savings were dwindling, and going back to Lagos felt like admitting defeat after everything she'd sacrificed to build a life here. So she'd researched everything about Halcyon Group, memorized their quarterly reports, analyzed their supply chain inefficiencies, prepared answers to questions they hadn't even thought to ask yet. And then Kang Minho had walked in. 30 years old, newly appointed CEO after his father's sudden retirement, moving through the conference room like he owned not just the company but the very air they breathed. "You analyzed our Q2 distribution failures in your application essay," he'd said without preamble, not bothering with pleasantries. "You suggested a complete overhaul of our vendor relationships in Southeast Asia. Why?" Esther had forced her voice steady. "Because you're losing approximately 300 million won per quarter to inefficiencies that your current vendors are incentivized to maintain. They profit from your problems. You need partners who profit from your solutions. And you think you can identify those partners. I think I can identify the problems clearly enough that the solutions become obvious." Something had flickered in his eyes, interest maybe, challenge. "You're hired," he'd said, ignoring the surprised looks from the hearing panel. "You start Monday. My previous assistant gave notice yesterday, so you'll be working directly with me. Can you handle that?" She should have said no, should have recognized the warning signs, the intensity in his gaze, the way her heart had jumped when he looked at her, the dangerous pull she felt toward this man she'd known for all of 10 minutes. But she'd needed the job. So she'd said yes. And she'd spent the next 3 years learning that sometimes the thing you need most is the thing that will destroy you. Present day, 11:47 p.m. Esther stood in her apartment in Itaewon, staring at her phone as notifications continued to pour in. The video from the lobby had gone viral, not just within Halcyon but across Korean business social media. "Billionaire CEO declares love for assistant" was trending. Think pieces were already being written about power dynamics and workplace romance. And the comments, "She must be really good at her job. Another woman sleeping her way to the top. How long before he gets tired of her? This is so inappropriate. The board should do something. Actually, this is kind of romantic. She's using him for a visa money status. Pick one." Esther's hands trembled as she scrolled through them. David's warning echoed in her mind. "You'll always be his dirty little secret." Except she wasn't a secret anymore. She was a spectacle. A knock on her door made her jump. She knew who it would be before she opened it. Minho stood in her hallway, still in his work clothes, his tie loosened and his hair slightly disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. He held 2 bags of takeout that smelled like her favorite Korean fried chicken. "I thought you might not want to be alone," he said quietly. Esther wanted to be strong, wanted to pretend the comments didn't sting, that she wasn't terrified of what Monday morning would bring, that she didn't regret every choice that had led to this moment. But she'd never been good at lying to him. "They think I'm using you," she whispered. "They think I slept my way into your life, that I'm some kind of opportunist." "I know." He set the food down and pulled her into his arms. "I'm sorry. I knew it would be bad, but I didn't think." That it would be this brutal. That it would hurt you this much. He pulled back to look at her face, his expression anguished. Esther, if you want to stop this, if you want to put distance between us until things calm down. No, the word came out fierce, desperate. No, I'm not running, I'm not hiding, She gestured helplessly at her phone. I just need a moment to remember why we're doing this. I can help with that. He cupped her face in his hands. We're doing this because I've been in love with you since the day you walked into my office and reorganized my entire filing system without permission. Because you challenge me and frustrate me and make me want to be better than I am. Because when I imagine my future, you're in every single moment of it. That's not fair, she said, but she was smiling through tears. Using words like that when I'm trying to be rational. Rational is overrated. I spent 3 years being rational, being careful, and all it did was make me miserable. He kissed her forehead. So let them talk. Let them write their think pieces and make their assumptions. None of it changes what we are. And what are we? Everything. He said it simply, like it was the most obvious truth in the world. You're everything, Esther. She kissed him then, tasting salt from her own tears and the desperation of someone clinging to hope. This was insane, probably a mistake, definitely going to complicate everything. But as Minho lifted her off her feet, as she wrapped her legs around his waist and let him carry her toward the bedroom, as she chose desire over caution for maybe the first time in her life, Esther decided that some mistakes were worth making. Some risks were worth taking. And some men were worth fighting for. Even if the whole world was watching. Saturday morning, 6:23 a.m. Esther woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom window and the unfamiliar weight of someone else in her bed. Minho was still asleep, his face relaxed in a way she never saw during work hours. He looked younger like this, vulnerable. His arm was draped across her waist, possessive even in sleep. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it carefully, trying not to wake him. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, most from colleagues, some from friends she hadn't spoken to in months, suddenly very interested in her personal life. And one email that made her blood run cold. From Executive Board Hanseon Group. To Kang Minho, Okonkwo Esther. Subject, Emergency Board Meeting, Monday 9 a.m. Mr. Kang and Miss Okonkwo. In light of recent events that have come to the board's attention, we are calling an emergency meeting to discuss the implications of your relationship on company policy, workplace conduct, and Mr. Kang's leadership position. Your presence is mandatory. This matter will be handled with the utmost discretion and professionalism. We trust you will extend the same courtesy. Chairman Park. Let me guess. Minho's voice was rough with sleep behind her. Emergency board meeting. How did you? I got the same email. He pulled her back against his chest, his lips finding her shoulder. I told you they'd object. They're questioning your leadership position, Minho, because of me. Let them question it. I'll answer with quarterly earnings that have tripled under my direction, with expansion into 6 new markets, with a company value that's increased by 400% in 3 years. His hand splayed across her stomach, protective and possessive. And if that's not enough, I'll remind them that I own 51% of Hanseon Group. They can object all they want. They can't remove me. Esther turned in his arms to face him. You'd really risk everything. Your relationship with the board, your father's legacy, the company reputation, all of it. For you, he said it without hesitation, without question every time. That's insane. So you keep saying, he kissed her slow and thorough, and yet you're still here. She was. Despite the viral videos and the vicious comments and the emergency board meeting that could determine both their futures, she was still here, wrapped in his arms, choosing this impossible thing. I must be insane too, she murmured against his lips. Good, his smile was dangerous, beautiful. Sanity is overrated anyway. They spent the weekend in her small apartment, ignoring the outside world. Minho cooked breakfast, poorly, but with enough enthusiasm that it was endearing. They watched old movies and argued about plot holes. He played her song requests on her barely tuned piano. She taught him how to properly season jollof rice. They talked about everything. His childhood growing up as the heir to Hanseong, the pressure that had shaped him. Her family in Lagos, the sister she missed, the guilt of building a life so far from home. The dreams they'd each buried under professional ambitions. It was the most normal, domestic, perfect weekend of Esther's life. And on Monday morning, reality came crashing back. Monday, 8:45 a.m. The Hanseong Group boardroom was exactly as intimidating as Esther remembered from the few times she'd been required to attend meetings. All dark wood and expensive leather, designed to make people feel small. She sat beside Minho at the long conference table, acutely aware of the 12 board members staring at them, with expressions ranging from disapproval to outright hostility. Chairman Park, Minho's father, sat at the head of the table. He was 72, silver-haired, and looked at his son with something that might have been disappointment. "Well," he said finally, "this is quite the mess you've created, Minho." "With respect, Chairman Park, I haven't created anything. I've simply stopped hiding a relationship that's been developing for 3 years." "A relationship with your subordinate," Director Choi interjected. "The power imbalance alone." "Which is why I'm proposing immediate restructuring," Minho cut in smoothly. He slid a document across the table. "Effective immediately, Esther will report directly to the board rather than to me. Her title will change from executive assistant to vice president of strategic operations. Her compensation will be adjusted to reflect market rates for that position, which, as you'll see, is actually significantly higher than what I've been paying her." Silence fell over the boardroom. Esther stared at the document, her heart pounding. VP of Strategic Operations. That was a C-suite adjacent position. That was. "You can't be serious," one of the older directors sputtered. "She's been here 3 years. And in those 3 years, she's improved our operational efficiency by 34%, identified cost savings of over 2 billion won annually, and successfully negotiated partnerships that have expanded our market reach into territories we'd been trying to break into for a decade." Minho's voice was steel. "If anything, I've been underpaying her. Possibly deliberately, because I knew if she realized her market value, she might leave for a better offer. This is clearly a scheme to legitimize an inappropriate relationship." "What's inappropriate about 2 adults choosing to be together?" Minho looked around the table, his gaze challenging. "If Esther were a man, would we be having this meeting? If she were working for a different company and we started dating, would anyone question it?" "That's not the point." "That's exactly the point." He leaned forward. "I've spent 3 years being scrupulously professional with Esther, 3 years maintaining distance, 3 years pretending I didn't feel what I felt because I knew there would be optics issues, and all it did was make us both miserable. So yes, I'm restructuring her position. Yes, I'm removing any power imbalance. And yes, I'm making it absolutely clear that she earned every bit of her new title through competence, not through our relationship." Chairman Park studied his son for a long moment. "And if we vote to reject this restructuring, then I'll resign my position as CEO and start my own company, with Esther as my partner. I own enough shares that the resulting stock volatility will cost Hanseong approximately 15% of its market value overnight." Minho's smile was cold. "But that seems wasteful when we could simply acknowledge that I'm in love with the most qualified person in this building and move forward accordingly." More silence. Then unexpectedly, the eldest director, Mr. Kim, who'd been with Hanseong for 40 years, laughed. "Your father used to say the same thing about your mother," he said, looking at Chairman Park. "Do you remember? when you insisted on marrying that completely inappropriate woman from Busan instead of the sole heiress we'd picked out for you. Chairman Park's expression softened slightly. That was different. Was it? Or are we just old men who have forgotten what it's like to fight for something that matters? Mr. Kim looked at Esther. Miss Okonkwo, do you love my nephew's son? Esther's throat tightened. Every instinct screamed at her to be diplomatic, to hedge, to protect herself. But she'd made a choice this weekend. She'd chosen honesty over distance. Yes, she said clearly. I do, and I know how this looks. I know what people will assume, but I've never asked Minho for special treatment. I've never used our relationship or the potential for one to advance my career. Everything I've achieved at Hanseong I achieved through work. And the new VP position is something I'll have to prove I deserve every single day, just like I've proven myself every day for the last 3 years. She looked around the table, meeting each skeptical gaze. I'm not asking you to approve of our relationship. I'm asking you to judge me on my results. And if I fail to deliver at the VP level, fire me. I'll accept that. But fire me for performance, not for who I love. More silence. Then Chairman Park sighed. All those in favor of Minho's restructuring proposal. 7 hands went up, slowly, reluctantly, but up. Motion passes, Chairman Park said. Miss Okonkwo, congratulations on your promotion. I suggest you make very certain you earn it. I will, sir. And Minho, his father's expression hardened. If this relationship creates any further scandal, any hint of impropriety, any suggestion that you're allowing personal feelings to interfere with business decisions, it won't. See that it doesn't. You've staked your reputation on this woman. Don't make me regret allowing it. The meeting adjourned. Esther and Minho walked out of the boardroom in silence, both processing what had just happened. VP of Strategic Operations, Esther said finally, you couldn't have warned me. I drafted the proposal this weekend while you were sleeping. He caught her hand, threading their fingers together. I told you, I'm done hiding, done pretending. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. The pressure's going to be insane. Everyone will be watching me, waiting for me to fail. Then we'll prove them wrong together. He pulled her into an empty hallway and kissed her thoroughly. You've already proven them wrong for 3 years. This is just making it official. You're insane. So you've mentioned, multiple times now. His smile was dangerous, beautiful. Any other observations? Just one, she kissed him again. I love you. I know, he said smugly, and she laughed despite everything. They were going to face scrutiny, judgment, people who would always assume the worst. The relationship would be tested in ways neither of them could predict. But as Minho pulled her close, as they stood in that hallway and chose each other despite every logical reason not to, Esther decided she was okay with that. Some loves were worth fighting for. Some risks were worth taking. And some moments really did change everything. This was one of them. The honeymoon period lasted exactly 14 days. Esther should have known it was too easy. The board approval, Minho's unwavering support, the way everything seemed to fall into place despite the odds. It all felt like the universe holding its breath before the storm hit. The storm's name was Young Soyeon. She walked into Esther's new office on a Wednesday morning without knocking, tall, elegant, wearing a Chanel suit that probably cost more than Esther's monthly rent. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, and her smile sharp enough to cut glass. So you're the woman who finally caught him, Soyeon said, looking around the office with barely concealed disdain. I have to admit I'm impressed. Minho always swore he'd never mix business with pleasure. Esther looked up from the quarterly projections she'd been reviewing, her professional smile firmly in place. I'm sorry, have we met? Young Soyeon, chairman of Young Entertainment Group, also, she paused for effect, Minho's ex-fiancé. The words hit like a physical blow. Esther's expression didn't change, but her hands tightened around her pen. I wasn't aware Minho had been engaged. Oh, it was years ago, before his father retired, before you. Soyeon sat down uninvited, crossing her legs with practiced grace. Our families arranged it when we were children. We dated on and off throughout university. It was always understood that we'd eventually marry and merge our companies. And yet you didn't. No, because Minho decided he wanted to find his own path or some such nonsense, break tradition, prove he could build Hanseong without relying on strategic marriages. Soyeon's smile turned cold. Of course, that was before he fell for his secretary. Executive assistant, now VP of strategic operations. How nice for you, Soyeon leaned forward. Let me be direct, Miss Okonkwo, you're a phase. A rebellion against everything Minho's family expects from him. You're exotic, forbidden, completely unsuitable by traditional standards, which makes you irresistible. For now. Esther felt anger flash through her, hot and sharp. Is there a point to this conversation? The point is that I know Minho. I've known him since we were children. And I know that once the novelty wears off, once the scandal dies down and reality sets in, he'll realize what he's given up. Soyeon stood, smoothing her skirt. Enjoy your promotion, Miss Okonkwo. I'm sure you earned it, one way or another. She left as abruptly as she'd arrived, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume and the poison of doubt. Esther sat frozen at her desk, Soyeon's words echoing in her mind. You're a phase, a rebellion. Was she? Had she been so desperate to believe Minho's feelings were real that she'd missed the obvious? That she was exactly what Soyeon said, forbidden fruit, a way for Minho to prove he wasn't bound by family expectations. Her phone buzzed, a text from Minho. Lunch, I miss you. 3 words that should have made her heart soar. Instead, they felt complicated, heavy with questions she didn't want to ask. Can't, swamped with the Singapore analysis. Dinner then, my place, I'll cook. You can't cook. I'll order in and pretend I cooked, same thing. Despite everything, she smiled. Fine, 7 p.m. It's a date, wear something you don't mind me taking off. Heat flushed through her, chasing away some of the doubt. This was real, what they had was real. Wasn't it? Esther had been to Minho's apartment twice before, both times to drop off urgent documents when he was working from home. She'd never stayed longer than 5 minutes, never ventured past the foyer. Now she stood in his living room, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River, the minimalist furniture that screamed expensive, the grand piano in the corner that she'd never heard him play. You're late, Minho said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. He pressed a kiss to her neck. I was starting to think you'd changed your mind. Traffic? It wasn't entirely a lie. She had sat in traffic for 20 minutes, using the time to give herself a stern talking to about not letting Soyeon's visit get under her skin. It hadn't worked. Well, you're here now. He turned her around and his smile faded when he saw her expression. What's wrong? Nothing, I'm just tired. Esther, he cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. I can tell when you're lying. What happened? She should tell him. Should be honest about Soyeon's visit, about the doubts that had been festering all day. But the words stuck in her throat, because asking meant admitting she was insecure, meant revealing that part of her believed Soyeon might be right. Just a long day, she said instead. The VP transition is more complicated than I expected. People are watching my every move, waiting for me to fail. It wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. Minho's expression softened. He pulled her close, and she let herself sink into his embrace, breathing in his familiar scent. They're not going to get what they're waiting for, he murmured against her hair. You're going to be brilliant. You already are. You're biased. Extremely, but also correct. He pulled back, his hands sliding down to her waist. Come on, I ordered from that Thai place you like, and I may have also gotten mango sticky rice because I know it's your favorite. You're trying to seduce me with dessert. Is it working? Despite everything, she laughed. Maybe. They ate dinner on his balcony, the city lights spreading out below them like a blanket of stars. Minho told her about the merger negotiations that were driving him crazy. She complained about Director Kim's passive-aggressive comments during the strategy meeting. It felt normal, easy, like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. I have something for you, Minho said when they'd finished eating. He disappeared into his bedroom and returned with a small box. Esther's stomach tightened. Minho. It's not a ring, relax. But his smile was nervous as he handed it to her. Just open it. Inside was a key. Simple, silver, attached to a keychain with the Hanseong Tower logo. It's to my apartment, he said quietly. I want you to have access, to be able to come here whenever you want, to know that this is your space too if you want it to be. Esther stared at the key, her throat tight. This was a big step, a commitment that went beyond public declarations and board meetings. And suddenly Soyin's words came rushing back. You're a phase, a rebellion. This is moving really fast, she heard herself say. Minho's expression shuddered slightly. Too fast. I don't know, maybe. She set the box down, her hands trembling. 2 weeks ago, we were just boss and assistant. Now I'm your girlfriend, your VP, and you're giving me keys to your apartment. It's a lot. Is this about the key, or is this about something else? It's about, she stood up, needing space, needing air. It's about the fact that your ex-fiancé showed up in my office today and told me I'm a phase, a rebellion against your family's expectations, that once the novelty wears off, you'll realize what you've given up. Silence fell over the balcony, broken only by the distant sounds of the city below. Soyin came to see you, Minho said finally, his voice carefully controlled. You didn't think to mention you'd been engaged. It was over 8 years ago. It wasn't relevant. Not relevant, Esther turned to face him. Your ex-fiancé from a strategic family alliance shows up to tell me I'm temporary, and you don't think that's something I should have known about. It was an arrangement our families made when we were kids. We tried dating in university because it was expected, and it was a disaster. We wanted completely different things. She wanted a society marriage and charity galas and someone who'd be a decorative CEO husband. I wanted, he stopped, frustrated. I wanted something real, something that mattered, which is why I ended it. And then you found me, your assistant, someone completely inappropriate by your family standards. Esther laughed bitterly. Soyin's right, isn't she? I'm the ultimate rebellion, the billionaire CEO falling for the foreign employee. It's almost too perfect. You think that's what this is? Minho's voice went cold. You think I've spent 3 years wanting you, fighting for you, staking my reputation on you, just to prove a point to my family? I don't know, because you don't tell me things. The words burst out of her. 3 weeks of pressure and doubt and fear finally breaking free. I didn't know about Soyin. I didn't know your father opposed our relationship so strongly he threatened your position. I didn't know about the marriage proposals your mother's been throwing at you. I find out everything secondhand from other people, and I'm supposed to just trust that what we have is real. It is real. How do I know that? She was crying now, hot tears spilling down her cheeks. How do I know I'm not just convenient? The safe choice because I'll never fit into your world, never be accepted by your family, never be anything more than the foreign girlfriend who's good enough to sleep with but not good enough to actually build a life with. The words hung between them like broken glass. Minho stared at her, something raw and painful in his expression. Is that really what you think, after everything? I think I'm terrified, Esther whispered. I think I've risked everything for this, my career, my reputation, my professional credibility, and I'm terrified that 6 months from now you'll wake up and realize Soyin was right, that I was just a phase. Esther. Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe we should take a step back, slow down. No, he crossed the space between them in 2 strides, his hands gripping her shoulders. No, we're not doing that. We're not letting Soyin's poison ruin what we have. It's not just Soyin. It's everything. The pressure, the scrutiny, the constant feeling that I have to prove I deserve to be with you. You don't have to prove anything. Not to me. Not to anyone. His thumbs brushed away her tears. I love you, not because you're a rebellion or a phase or anything except yourself. I love you because you're brilliant and stubborn and you challenge me. Because you make me want to be better. Because when I imagine my future, you're in every single moment of it. You don't know that. You can't know that. I know that I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. I know that Soyin and I were together on and off for 3 years, and I never once considered actually marrying her. I know that my mother has introduced me to at least 15 suitable women since I became CEO, and I didn't feel a fraction of what I feel when you walk into a room. His forehead pressed against hers. I know that I'm completely, irrevocably in love with you, and nothing Soyin says changes that. She said I'm exotic, forbidden. That's what makes me attractive. She's jealous. Minho's voice was firm. She's realizing that what we couldn't build in 3 years, you and I built in 1 conversation, and it scares her, so she's trying to scare you. It's working. I know. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. But I'm not going to let her win. I'm not going to let anyone make you doubt what we have. Esther wanted to believe him, wanted to silence the doubt Soyin had planted. But fear was a stubborn thing. Prove it, she whispered. How? Show me. She looked up at him, her heart pounding. Show me I'm not just a phase. Show me this is real. Something dark and hungry flashed in his eyes. Esther. I need to feel it. I need. She couldn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. You understood. He kissed her like a man drowning, like she was air and water and everything he needed to survive. His hands tangled in her hair, angling her head to deepen the kiss, and Esther melted into him with a soft sound that was part relief, part desperation. Inside, he murmured against her lips, now. They barely made it to his bedroom. Minho's hands were everywhere, sliding up her sides, finding the zipper of her dress, skimming over skin that felt like it was on fire. Esther fumbled with the buttons of his shirt, her fingers clumsy with need. You're not a phase, he said roughly, his lips trailing down her neck as her dress pooled at her feet. You're not a rebellion, you're not temporary. Then what am I? Her breath hitched as his mouth found the sensitive spot below her ear. Everything. He lifted her easily, and she wrapped her legs around his waist as he carried her to the bed. You're everything, Esther. He laid her down on the silk sheets with a gentleness that made her ache. For a moment, he just looked at her, her hair spread across his pillow, her chest rising and falling with quick breaths. God, you're beautiful, he said, his voice rough with want. Minho. No, he covered her body with his, supporting his weight on his forearms. Let me say this. Let me tell you what I see when I look at you. You don't have to. I see the woman who walked into my office 3 years ago and changed my entire world. I see someone brilliant and brave and stronger than she realizes. I see the only person I've ever wanted to wake up next to, the only future I want. His hand traced her jawline, his touch reverent. I see home, Esther. You're my home. The tears came again, but different this time. Not from doubt, but from the overwhelming rightness of this moment. I love you, she whispered. I know. His smile was gentle, beautiful. Now let me show you how much I love you. His mouth found hers again, slower this time, more deliberate. He kissed her like he had all the time in the world, like nothing existed except this bed, this moment, the two of them finally allowed to be honest about what they wanted. His lips traced a path down her throat, across her collarbone, lower. Patience, he murmured, but there was heat in his voice, control barely leashed. I don't want patience. She pulled at his shirt, needing skin, needing contact. I want you. He touched her like he knew her body already, like he'd spent years learning what made her shiver, what made her moan. Maybe he had. Maybe he'd been paying attention to every subtle reaction, every small tell, cataloging them for a moment exactly like this. More, she breathed, and he obliged. Look at me, he commanded softly, and her eyes flew to his. I want you to see who's making you feel this way. I want you to know exactly who you belong to. Oh God, she gasped, her nails digging into his shoulders. Just mean you, he said with dark humor, but his voice was strained, his control clearly hanging by a thread. You feel incredible, Minho groaned against her neck. So perfect, like you were made for me. Harder, Esther demanded, and he smiled against her skin. Bossy. You like it. I love it, I love you. Pleasure crashed through her in waves, stealing her breath, making her shake. She clutched at him desperately, crying his name like a prayer. They collapsed together in a tangle of limbs and racing hearts, both struggling to breathe. When Esther could finally think again, she found Minho watching her with such open affection that her chest ached. Still think you're a phase? He asked softly. Maybe you should prove it again, just to be sure. His laugh was warm and genuine, challenge accepted. 3:47 a.m. Esther woke to unfamiliar darkness, and the warmth of another body pressed against hers. For a moment she panicked, then memory returned. Minho's apartment, his bed, the hours they'd spent proving to each other that what they had was real. She smiled, turning carefully to look at him. He was deeply asleep, his face relaxed, one arm thrown across her waist with unconscious possessiveness. This man loved her, actually loved her. And she loved him back with an intensity that should have been terrifying. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from an unknown number. Enjoy your moment in the sun, Miss Okonkwo, but remember nothing gold can stay. S. Soyin. Esther stared at the message, feeling the doubt creep back in despite the last few hours. Soyin wasn't going to give up. And maybe she had a point. Maybe the obstacles they faced were too big. Maybe love wasn't enough. What's wrong? Minho's sleepy voice made her jump. His eyes were half open, concerned. Nothing, just work email. At 3 a.m. She showed him the message. Minho's expression went from sleepy to furious in a heartbeat. That's it. I'm calling her right now. Don't. Esther took his phone before he could grab it. That's what she wants. Drama, proof that she can get under our skin. She threatened you. She quoted a poem at me, Robert Frost. Nothing gold can stay. Esther set both their phones on the nightstand. It's not a threat, it's just pessimism. Soyin's specialty. Minho pulled her back against his chest, wrapping his arms around her protectively. Block her number. Already done. Good. He pressed a kiss to her shoulder. You're allowed to let me fight for you, you know. You don't have to handle everything alone. I've been alone for a long time. It's habit. Well, break the habit. We're a team now, partners. You fight my battles, I fight yours. Partners? The word settled something in Esther's chest. Okay, she whispered. Okay. I'll try to let you in, to trust this. She turned in his arms to face him. But you have to do the same. No more secrets. No more ex-fiancés showing up that I didn't know about. Deal, full transparency from now on. Even about the difficult things. Especially about the difficult things. He kissed her forehead, which brings me to something I should probably mention. Esther's stomach tightened. What? My mother wants to meet you, officially, family dinner next Sunday. Oh God. My reaction exactly, he smiled ruefully. She's not thrilled about us, but she's willing to meet you, which is progress. Your mother hates me, and I haven't even met her yet. She doesn't hate you, she hates change, and you represent a lot of change. His hand found hers under the covers. But she'll love you once she gets to know you. How could she not? Because I'm not Korean, not from the right family, not what she imagined for her son. No, you're better. He said it with such conviction that Esther almost believed him, and if she can't see that, it's her loss. Easy to say when it's not your relationship with your mother at stake. Esther, he cupped her face, making her look at him. My mother's approval would be nice, but it's not required. You're the one I'm building a life with, not her. Family is important to you. Your family now too, the family I'm choosing. He kissed her softly. So yes, we'll go to dinner. We'll be polite and charming, but if she can't accept you, we'll deal with that together. Okay. Esther wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the ways this could go wrong. But she was tired of being afraid. Okay, she said, together. They fell back asleep, tangled in each other, and for the first time since Soyin's visit, Esther let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, they could weather any storm. The next morning, Hanseong Tower, 9:15 a.m. Esther was reviewing the Singapore expansion proposal when Yuna from marketing appeared in her doorway, looking nervous. Hey, got a minute? Sure, Esther gestured to the chair across from her desk. What's up? I wanted to apologize. Yuna twisted her hands in her lap. For what I said a few weeks ago, about Mr. Kang never seeing you the way you wanted, I was clearly wrong. You were just being honest. I was being cynical and kind of an asshole. Yuna smiled weakly. The truth is, I'm a little jealous. The way he looks at you, it's like something out of a romance novel. It doesn't always feel that way. Esther thought about Soyin's visit, the doubts, the fear. It's complicated. Anything worth having usually is. Yuna hesitated. Can I give you some different advice, friend to friend? Of course. Don't let them make you small. The board, the other executives, everyone who's going to be watching you extra carefully because of your relationship with Mr. Kang, don't let them make you doubt yourself. You earned this promotion. You're good at your job, and you deserve to be happy. The words hit something tender in Esther's chest. Thank you. Also, just so you know, the junior staff are completely Team Esther and Minho. There's a betting pool on how long until he proposes. Esther laughed despite herself. There's what? Oh yeah, current odds are 6 months. I've got money on 3 because I think he's secretly a romantic and won't be able to wait. Yuna grinned. Don't tell him I told you. Your secret's safe with me. After Yuna left, Esther found herself smiling. Maybe they weren't as alone as she'd thought. Maybe there were people rooting for them. Her phone buzzed, a text from Minho. Lunch, I promise to keep my hands to myself, mostly. Mostly. I make no guarantees. You're very distracting. We're at work. Your point. My point is that I have a reputation to maintain, Mr. Kang. Fine, I'll behave, but tonight all bets are off. Heat flooded through her at the implication. Your place or mine? Mine, I haven't properly christened every room yet. Seems like an oversight. You're impossible. But you love me anyway. Unfortunately. See you at noon. Wear the blue dress, the one from your interview. Esther's breath caught. He remembered what she'd worn 3 years ago, had probably been remembering it every day since. Why that dress? Because I've been fantasizing about taking it off you since the day we met. Time to make that fantasy reality. She was definitely not going to survive this relationship. Sunday dinner, the Kang family estate. The Kang family home was exactly as intimidating as Esther had imagined. A sprawling traditional hanok in Bukshan, all curved roof lines and carefully manicured gardens. It screamed old money and older traditions. Relax, Minho said, squeezing her hand as they approached the entrance. It's just dinner. With your mother, who hates me. Who doesn't know you yet, there's a difference. The interior was just as impressive. Antique furniture, priceless art, rooms that felt more like museums than living spaces. Esther felt profoundly out of place in her carefully chosen modest dress. Minho's mother was waiting in the formal dining room, and Esther's first thought was that she looked exactly like someone who'd been disappointed her entire life. Elegant, impeccably dressed, with eyes that missed nothing and revealed less. "Mother," Minho said, his tone respectful but not warm. "This is Esther Okonkwo, Esther, my mother, Kang Minho." "Mrs. Kang," Esther bowed respectfully, "thank you for inviting me to your home." "Miss Okonkwo," Minho's gaze swept over Esther, assessing, judging. "Please sit." Dinner was excruciating. Minho asked pointed questions about Esther's family. "Your father is a teacher. How quaint. Her education, an MBA from a non-Ivy League school, must have been challenging. Her plans for the future. I suppose you're content with your current position." Every answer Esther gave felt inadequate. Every silence felt loaded. Minho's jaw grew progressively tighter throughout the meal, his hand finding Esther's under the table and holding on like a lifeline. Finally, over dessert, Minho set down her spoon and looked directly at Esther. "I'm going to be honest with you, Miss Okonkwo. I don't understand my son's infatuation with you. You come from a completely different world. You don't understand our culture, our traditions, the responsibilities that come with being part of this family." "Mother," Minho started, but Esther squeezed his hand, stopping him. "You're right," she said quietly. "I don't come from your world. I grew up middle class in Lagos, not in Korean high society. I don't know all the traditions or the unspoken rules, but I love your son, and I respect him enough to learn, to try, to be worthy of him." "And you think love is enough?" "I think it's a start." Esther met Minho's gaze steadily. "I think the fact that your son is brilliant and successful and building something incredible is because you raised him that way. And I think he chose me not because I'm from his world, but because I see him for who he actually is, not who tradition says he should be." Silence fell over the dining room. Then unexpectedly, Minho smiled, small but genuine. "You have spirit," she said. "I can see why he chose you, even if I don't entirely approve." It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't rejection either. It was a start. 2 months later, Esther stood in her new apartment, larger than her previous one, in a better neighborhood, finally befitting her VP salary, and surveyed the organized chaos of moving boxes. Minho was supposed to be helping her unpack. Instead, he was sprawled on her new couch, watching her with undisguised affection. "You're not helping," she pointed out. "I'm providing moral support." "You're being lazy." "Also true." He stood stretching and crossed to where she stood. "Question." "Answer." "Move in with me." Esther's hands stilled on the box she'd been unpacking. "What?" "Move in with me. You're at my place half the week anyway. It makes sense." "We've only been together 3 months." "We've been together 3 years. We just finally made it official 3 months ago." He turned her to face him. "I love you. You love me. We're adults with steady income and a disgustingly functional relationship. Why wait?" "Because it's fast. Because people will talk." "Let them talk. They're already talking." His hands framed her face. "I wake up better when you're there. I sleep better when you're beside me. Coming home to an empty apartment when I know you're across town feels stupid and wasteful. So move in with me. Make it official." Esther's heart was racing. This was huge. This was commitment on a level that terrified her. But it also felt right. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Okay. Yes, I'll move in with you." His smile was incandescent. He lifted her off her feet, spinning her around. And she laughed despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, despite everything. Because maybe Soyeon had been wrong. Maybe some things that glittered were actually gold. Maybe some loves really did last. And maybe, just maybe, she and Minho were building something that would survive whatever came next. Together. 6 months later, Hanseong Group Annual Gala. The ballroom was filled with Seoul's elite, CEOs and celebrities, politicians and power players. Esther moved through the crowd in a stunning emerald gown that Minho had insisted on buying her, fielding questions about the Singapore expansion and deflecting the occasional snide comment about her relationship. She'd learned to handle it, the scrutiny, the judgment, the constant pressure to prove herself. What she hadn't learned was how to handle the way Minho looked at her across crowded rooms, like she was the only person who existed. "You're starring," she murmured when he appeared at her side with champagne. "Can't help it, you're the most beautiful woman here." "You're biased." "Extremely, but also correct." He handed her a glass, then took her free hand. "Dance with me." "Minho, we're supposed to be networking." "I've networked enough for one lifetime. Dance with me." She let him lead her to the dance floor, acutely aware of the eyes tracking their movement. But as his arms came around her, as they swayed to the music, everything else faded. "I have something for you," he said quietly. "If it's another expensive gift I told you not to buy." "It's not." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Esther's heart stopped. "Minho." "It's not what you think." "Well, it is what you think, but it's also different." He opened the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring. "I'm not proposing, not yet, not here." "Then what?" "I'm asking you to think about it, about marrying me, about building a life together, about taking that final step." His eyes were earnest, vulnerable. "I know it's fast by most standards. I know there are still challenges ahead, but I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and I wanted you to know that, to have this ring, so that when you're ready, when we're both ready, you can say yes." Esther stared at the ring, tears blurring her vision. "You're giving me an engagement ring but not proposing." "I'm giving you a promise, that I'm committed, that I'm not going anywhere, that when the time is right I want to make this permanent." "You're insane." "So you keep saying," he smiled. "What do you think?" She thought about the last 6 months, the battles they'd fought, the doubts they'd conquered, the love they'd built despite impossible odds. She thought about Young Soyeon's warning, "Nothing gold can stay." And she thought maybe not, but maybe some things are worth fighting for anyway. "I think," she took the ring from the box and slipped it onto her right hand, "a promise, not an engagement. I think I love you. I think you drive me crazy. And I think one day when we're both ready I'm going to say yes. One day soon. Maybe, if you're lucky." "I'm the luckiest man alive, Esther. I have been since the day you walked into that interview." He kissed her there on the dance floor, in front of Seoul's elite, in front of cameras and gossips and everyone who doubted them. And Esther kissed him back, choosing love over fear, choosing hope over doubt, choosing him over every logical reason not to. From white roses to diamond promises, Esther and Minho's love survived scrutiny, scandal, and every obstacle thrown in their path. Their story proves that the most beautiful things in life, the things worth fighting for, are never easy, and sometimes the greatest risk leads to the greatest reward. What did you think of their journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below.